In 1948, a researcher named Helen Punt published a household chemistry bulletin through Cornell University's Home Economics Extension program. The bulletin, titled Economical Cleaners for the Working Kitchen, listed 14 formulas that any household could mix from pantry staples for under $2 combined. It was distributed to county extension offices across New York, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Within 15 years, it had quietly vanished from the extension catalogs, replaced by product recommendation guides funded, in part, by the very companies that were selling the alternatives. The formulas themselves did not disappear. They went where practical knowledge always goes when it becomes inconvenient for industry: into kitchens. Into the hands of housekeepers and hotel workers and restaurant cooks who could not afford to spend 20 minutes of wages on a bottle of branded scrubber every week. Into the recipe boxes of women like Ruth Bontrager of Millersburg, Ohio, who learned her cleaning paste from a hotel housekeeper named Mrs. Clara Yost, who had worked the kitchens at a large inn in Worcester for 31 years without ever once buying a commercial abrasive cleaner. It is Sunday after supper. The cast iron pot from the stew is sitting in the sink with a black ring of burnt-on food crusted around the bottom. The bacon pan from this morning has grease cooked into every corner. Most households in America reach for a bottle of something. Ruth Bontrager reaches for a jar she made herself in 2 minutes with 4 ingredients for about $1. One paste that does 8 jobs. And the only reason you probably do not already have it under your sink is that it cannot be sold to you. The average American household spends between $40 and $60 a year on kitchen and bathroom cleaners, scrubbing powders, degreasing sprays, stovetop foams, microwave wipes, sink polishes, tub scrubs, silverware pastes, and plastic restorers. Each one sold as a separate product, each one with its own bottle, its own branded name, its own shelf space. The combined active chemistry across all of them is, in most cases, some version of the same 3 or 4 ingredients working together: a surfactant to lift grease, an abrasive to scrub, an alkaline agent to break down cooked-on residue, and water as a carrier. That is not a guess. That is what you find when you read the ingredient lists. The branding is different. The chemistry is largely the same. And the same chemistry, mixed in a bowl in your own kitchen from plain dish soap, table salt, baking soda, and warm water, costs about 30 cents to make and fills a jar that lasts months. The cleaning products industry in the United States generates over $30 billion a year. It does not generate that number by selling you one product that does 8 jobs. It generates it by selling you 8 products that each do one job, and by making sure you never quite get around to wondering whether one would do. Ruth Bontrager keeps a mason jar of cleaning paste under the sink in her farmhouse kitchen in Holmes County. She has kept one there for 40 years, since her mother handed her the recipe on the day she moved into her own home with her husband Levi. The recipe came from Clara Yost, who had used it for 3 decades cleaning commercial kitchens and hotel rooms in Wayne County, Ohio, where the inn she worked in served 100 guests a night and cleaned every pot, every fixture, every stovetop, every sink with this same formula, because commercial cleaners at volume were an expense the house could not justify. The recipe is this: 1 cup of plain liquid dish detergent, 1 cup of warm water, 2 tablespoons of plain table salt, not sea salt, not kosher flakes, just the plain, fine crystal table salt that costs 80 cents a box. 1 tablespoon of baking soda. Mix them in a bowl until the baking soda fully dissolves into the detergent and water. Pour the mixture into a clean glass jar. Ruth uses a wide-mouth quart mason jar so she can get a sponge into it without difficulty. Store it under the sink. The jar costs nothing if you already own one, and this batch costs somewhere between 80 cents and $1.25, depending on the brand of dish soap you use. It lasts a household of 6 through 4 to 5 months of daily cleaning. This is not folk medicine. The reason this paste works is not tradition, and it is not Amish. Ruth Bontrager is the first to tell you that. It is straightforward household chemistry, and understanding why each ingredient is there makes you a better cleaner and a more confident one. Dish detergent is the grease lifter. The active molecules in dish soap, surfactants, are structured so that one end of the molecule is attracted to oil and one end is attracted to water. When you apply dish soap to a greasy surface and work it with water, the surfactant molecules grab onto the grease molecules and allow the water to carry them away. This is the foundational chemistry. Every commercial kitchen degreaser works on the same principle. The difference is concentration and marketing. Table salt is the abrasive. Fine salt crystals are hard enough to scrub stuck-on burnt food and dried grease from surfaces without scratching them, and critically, they dissolve as you work. This is the key advantage over synthetic abrasives in commercial powders. The scrubbing action decreases naturally as the job is done. You start with firm scrubbing power and end with none, which means no scratching on finishes and no powdery residue to rinse out. Baking soda is the alkaline grease cutter. Cooked-on grease, the kind that turns brown and sticky in the corners of a cast iron pan, or on the inside of a microwave door, or around the base of a stovetop burner, has undergone a chemical transformation through heat. Plain soap and water struggle with it. Baking soda, which is mildly alkaline, reacts with the fatty acids in cooked grease and begins to break them down chemically before the soap even has to work. It is also a natural deodorizer. The combination of baking soda's alkaline action, the detergent's surfactant action, and the salt's mechanical scrubbing action is why this paste lifts things that dish soap alone cannot touch. Warm water is the carrier that thins the mixture, helps the chemistry activate, and makes the paste easy to spread across a surface without clumping. This is verified chemistry. The HGTV home maintenance team recommends baking soda and dish soap combinations for burned cookware. Conservation-grade cleaning guides for cookware restoration recommend salt abrasives. Hotel housekeeping manuals, the actual internal ones, not the public-facing ones, have documented variations of this paste in operational use for over 60 years. The formulation is not secret. It has simply been made inconvenient to know. So, what can we do with this paste in our homes? Burnt pots and cast iron. This is where the paste does its most visible work. Eli Schwartz of Sugar Creek, Ohio, runs a farm kitchen that feeds 11 people 3 meals a day. He is not sentimental about cookware, but he will not replace a good cast iron pot over a burnt ring that can be lifted. He applies a tablespoon of paste to the burnt area, works it in with a stiff brush in circular strokes for 90 seconds, lets it sit for 2 minutes, then scrubs again and rinses. The salt provides the mechanical action, the baking soda breaks down the carbonized residue, and the soap carries it off. The ring lifts. For badly carbonized bottoms, the kind where a pot has been left on heat and forgotten, he repeats the process twice and lets the paste sit for 10 minutes on the second pass. The beginner mistake here is scrubbing immediately without letting the paste sit. Give the baking soda 30 seconds to begin its chemical work before you start the mechanical scrubbing. You will use half the effort. Cooked-on grease in pan corners. This is the fat that renders into a corner, cooks through multiple uses, and turns from yellow to brown to nearly black over time. It does not respond to dish soap and hot water alone because it is chemically bonded to the metal surface through repeated heating. Apply the paste to the corner with an old toothbrush, work it in, let it sit for 5 minutes, then scrub with the brush and rinse. The alkaline reaction of the baking soda with the aged fatty acids loosens the bond enough for the detergent to lift it. Mary Hirschberger of Lancaster County cleans every pan in her kitchen this way before the Sunday washing up. She has pans older than her children that look, she says, like they came off the shelf last week. The kitchen sink. Stainless steel sinks develop a dull film from mineral deposits, soap residue, and the microfilm of food particles that hot rinsing water does not fully clear. Apply a small amount of paste to a damp cloth and wipe the interior of the sink in the direction of the grain. The salt lifts the mineral deposits, the baking soda handles any odor at the drain, and the soap cuts the food film. Rinse thoroughly. Do not use this on colored enamel or coated sinks. Salt can micro-scratch coatings over time. The stovetop. Spills that have been cooked onto a stovetop surface, the ones that bubble up from a pot and harden to a dark ring around the burner, respond well to a paste application, a 5-minute sit, and a firm scrub with a non-metal pad. This is where the dissolving salt is especially valuable. You get real abrasive force at the start of the scrub and none at the end, so the surface underneath is not scratched. Inside the microwave. Grease and food splatter bakes onto microwave walls through repeated use. Dampen a cloth with the paste, wipe all interior surfaces, let it sit for 3 minutes, wipe clean with a damp cloth. The enclosed environment of the microwave means the paste stays wet and active longer than it would on an open surface, which helps the baking soda break down the baked-on splatter more thoroughly. Grease stains on plastic. Plastic containers that have held tomato-based or oil-based foods develop staining and grease film that dish soap does not remove. Apply a small amount of paste, work it in with a soft cloth, let it sit 2 minutes, rinse. The abrasive is gentle enough for plastic. The baking soda handles the staining. This restores containers that most households simply throw away. Silverware and metal flatware. Apply a small amount of paste to a soft cloth and polish each piece, then rinse and dry immediately. The mild salt abrasive removes tarnish and the film that builds up from dishwasher use. Jacob Miller of Goshen, Indiana, has a set of silverware that was his grandmother's grandmother's and has never been to a jeweler. He polishes it twice a year with this paste and stores it wrapped in flannel. It looks, he says, without any particular pride, the way it looked when it was made. Bathroom fixtures. Faucet bases, drains, and chrome fixtures develop a ring of soap scum and mineral deposit that standard bathroom cleaner lifts only partially. Apply a small amount of paste, let it sit 2 minutes, scrub gently with a soft cloth, rinse. The mineral deposits respond to the mild abrasion and the alkaline action. Do not use on gold finish or brushed brass fixtures. The salt can affect soft metal finishes. In 1971, the major household cleaning brands in the United States began lobbying successfully against generic product labeling requirements that would have forced them to disclose active ingredient percentages on consumer packaging. The argument made was proprietary formula protection. The practical effect was that a consumer buying a stovetop cleaner had no way to verify that the active chemistry was anything other than what a 30-cent homemade paste would provide. The reason formulas like this one gradually disappeared from mainstream household knowledge is straightforward. They cannot be patented. A mixture of dish detergent, salt, baking soda, and water produces no intellectual property. There is nothing to trademark. There is no mechanism by which the formula itself generates recurring revenue. The knowledge was useful to homemakers and housekeepers and professional kitchen workers, and it remained in circulation among them, in recipe boxes and housekeeping manuals, and the handwritten notes passed from a hotel housekeeper named Clara Yost to a young woman setting up her first home in Holmes County, Ohio. Because people who do hard physical work in kitchens every day do not have the luxury of forgetting what actually works. It did not disappear because it stopped working. It disappeared because working well was never enough to keep it on a shelf. This paste is food safe, surface safe, and contains nothing that requires special handling. One precaution worth stating plainly: never combine any homemade cleaner with bleach. Bleach mixed with alkaline agents, including baking soda in sufficient concentration, or with ammonia releases chlorine gas. This is a genuine chemical hazard, not a precautionary footnote. Keep bleach products entirely separate from this paste and never use them on the same surface without a thorough rinse in between. This paste contains no bleach and produces no dangerous reactions on its own. The precaution is simply the same common sense you extend to any cleaning product stored under a sink. A working household kitchen in America goes through somewhere between $40 and $60 of cleaning products a year. One jar of this paste, which costs $1 to make, fills in 4 minutes and stores for months, replaces 8 of those products. The chemistry is not secret. The formula is not complicated. What it requires is knowing it exists. Ruth Bontrager's jar sits under her sink in Millersburg. She will make a new batch in about 3 months when the current one runs low. It will take her 4 minutes and cost her less than $1. She will not think very much about it. It is simply how her kitchen has always worked. Tell me in the comments below, what is the worst burnt pot you have ever had to clean? The one you almost threw away? And do you have an old cleaning recipe from your own family? Something a grandmother used or a neighbor taught you that does what the store cleaners do? Share it. The little household recipes are exactly the kind of knowledge that disappears when nobody writes it down. I read every single one. Next time, the old Amish way of making bar soap from scratch. Lye rendered from ash, lard from the autumn butchering, a 6-week cure on a wooden shelf, so a household can wash itself for a full year on what costs the grocery store $10 a month. Subscribe so you do not miss it.